This is Diana Herrington, and we are presenting Minors Council training for 2021. My section today that I'm presenting is working with parents with personality disorders or psychiatric disorders. So those of you who have been doing Minors Councils for a while are aware of probably the majority of the parents you work with do have a personality disorder, or at least characteristics of a personality disorder. These are parents that may show up more often in court than other parents because they have some limited abilities as far as relationships go, as far as understanding the give and take of human relationships, and can be very, very difficult to work with. The personality disorders that we most often see in court are the following: borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder. I'm also a little bit later going to be talking about encapsulated delusional disorder, which is also not common in family law, but when it comes up is very problematic. So let's talk a little bit about where these folks show up in family law. It is not uncommon to find borderlines in cases that involve very poor parenting, domestic violence, and that can be ongoing violence, verbal or violence that happens at separation. They also are seen a lot in families with several step parents and many step siblings, families that have ongoing conflict regarding relationships, much substance abuse and alienation cases. Borderlines are difficult to work with. They present many times as critical. They have trouble sharing the children. They see people and children and relationships as things as rather than people. They are possessions. Many times, because of the way they view relationships, they are involved in very difficult relationships, have a high rate of domestic violence. Sometimes they are the domestic violent perpetrator. They also tend to have not be good with relationships, so that they may be the parent that has had 3 or 4 marriages or 3 or 4 live-in parents and many siblings because of this. They have vast trouble negotiating relationships, the give and take. They many times are involved with substance abuse, either drug abuse, controlled substance abuse, or alcoholism, because they use the substances to help blunt the pain that they feel internally whenever they're in relationship. Because they have trouble sharing, and because they see their children as possessions, they are often the parent who is the alienating parent in an alienation case. Antisocial personalities show up in alienation cases, domestic violence, physical and coercive controlling, sexual abuse, child and spousal, child support cases, and child abandonment. When we're talking about antisocial personalities, we're talking about people who have very little empathy or ability to see beyond themselves. This enables them to not identify with the feelings with their children, feelings with their partner. Uh, it is one of the reasons that a adult can sexually abuse a child and feel no remorse because they are only looking at what satisfies their need. They honestly do not have a mirror into other people's feelings and appear to just not care. It's not so much that they don't care, it's they're totally unaware of the other person's feelings. These are parents who also uh, because they are short on money or they have moved on, many times do not want to continue with child support and are the parents that may disappear or may go to court and say, if I'm going to pay money, then I'm going to see the kid. And this may be a child that they have very little relationship with and may really have very little interest in truly forming a relationship, but they are not going to pay child support unless they perceive getting something out of it. Again, it's easy for them to abandon children because they have trouble bonding. They really are not bonded to their children. They can leave the child and really have no problem not thinking about, well, maybe that child, needs their financial support, or maybe the child needs their emotional support. If it's not working for them, if they've moved on to a different relationship, if they need to change jobs and move away, it's very easy for them to just disconnect the relationship with the child and move on. Um, we also see antisocial personalities in alienation cases because, once again, they have very little feeling about how other people are experiencing things. They also tend to see children as possessions, and they very much will use the children to hurt an ex spouse or to not have to pay child support or may truly believe that their way is the only way and therefore they're going to be the only parent. Histrionic personalities show up in alienation, child neglect and abuse, substance abuse, cases that are ongoing with very little fact to back them up, but many serious allegations and child support cases. Histrionic personalities um, are parents who are sort of bigger than life. They sometimes are flamboyant in how they present themselves and how they dress. Sometimes their speech is loud, it's very expansive. Um, they can be very funny and they can also be very well, let's say they will play to you to get you on their side, but the moment that things are not going their way, very much like a borderline, they will turn on you. And they do this with their children just as well. Um, Many times they are involved in child neglect because, once again, their own needs for going out, their own needs within relationships will take preference over uh, staying home with their children, making sure their children are well cared for. Children sometimes are seen as just another job, and they do not get a lot of emotional feedback or give a lot of emotional feedback. Uh, Once again, they may be involved in substance abuse because, again, their feelings are so strong and how they process them that when things are not going their way and they don't understand it, they feel intense emptiness and will use substances to cover that up. Histrionics also tend to be real party people, so many times the substance abuse is indicative of a lifestyle that is focused around what we would call a good time. Um, they also are involved in cases that are very frustrating, that they have many allegations, but they have very little fact to back them up. But they maintain that the other parent is neglectful, is abusing, um, is emotionally absent. Many times they are describing themselves and putting that over on the other parent. They also are involved in child support cases, in that, again, if um, they are not gaining something from the relationship in their perspective, they see very little reason to financially burden themselves, or to go out of their way to make sure that their children are financially cared for. Narcissistic personalities show up in domestic violent cases, particularly with coercive control and verbally abusive cases, sexual abuse cases, neglect, and criminal cases. Once again, there's many narcissists who also have antisocial personality characteristics. Narcissists are interesting because they're very similar to antisocial in that it appears that they don't care about other people's feelings, and that becomes very frustrating within a relationship. You will hear the ex-client, the ex partner of a narcissist say, but he or she never cared that they hurt my feelings. They never cared that uh, I was home alone all day. And the issue is, once again, as I said with the antisocial personalities, it's not that the narcissist doesn't care, they're not even aware of it. And when you're working with a narcissistic parent, it becomes very apparent that it's very difficult for them to put their own needs second to the needs of their children, because they even have trouble identifying their children's needs because their needs are so omnipotent for them. That's all they see. It's like there is a mirror in front of them, and the only thing reflected back from this mirror is their own needs, and anything on the other side of the mirror does not exist for them. Another issue that comes up and is a very difficult issue to deal with from the bench officer's perspective, from minors counsel, and also from mental health that is helping out, as well as a lawyer who is working on a case, are cases where there are encapsulated delusions. Now, the and these are not technically categorized under personality disorders, but they are some of the most difficult parents to work with. Uh, Actually, the understanding an encapsulated delusion is understanding that a person has a belief that is absolutely unsupported by any evidence, but that person believes it. And you cannot, no matter how often you offer them proof that there's no proof, it does not budge them at all. They are incapable of looking at the evidence and saying, okay, I understand that there's no evidence and therefore it can't exist. They look at you and say, but that is true. That is true. The allegations I'm saying are true. And they have 101 reasons why the issue that there's no evidence to support it exists. also difficult because these people usually are high functioning in everyday life, with the exception of the delusion. They don't display indications of hallucinations. They don't display issues of thought disorder or a mood disorder. They don't have significant flattening of affect, meaning they don't appear depressed because they're not. Usually, when you come upon an encapsulated delusion in family law, the delusions are of the non bizarre content. There are delusions that exist where, the parent thinks that their child is communicating with them through the TV antennas, or um, something, that is bizarre, which is easy to spot, and you can understand, like, okay, this person has a mental health problem. But until you've worked on a case for a length of time, when there's an encapsulated delusion, you don't realize that it's encapsulated delusion, that it's a delusion, because the person appears perfectly normal in everyday life, and many times is actually a really good parent. Um, the most problematic are delusions that concern sexual abuse, and these are probably the most common in family law. Obviously, one of the reasons that this is so difficult is because sexual abuse many times is very difficult to substantiate or to non-substantiate. Uh, and the parents that have a encapsulated delusion about sexual abuse will find meaning in actions of the other parent that only to them indicates sexual abuse. I had a case years ago where the mother did have an encapsulated delusion regarding sexual abuse. She truly believed her ex husband was sexually abusing their daughter. And I was an evaluator on the case. And so, with one of my discussions with mom, I I asked her. I said, "Well, what proof do you have that there's sexual abuse, that he's abusing?" And her answer to me, and she meant it with her whole heart, was, she said, "When my daughter swims in the swimming pool, she will balance herself on top of a ball and then let it pop out." And I asked her, I said, "Well, okay, explain to me how that's related to sexual abuse." And she looked at me sort of like I had two heads. And she said, "Of course, don't you see? That shows she's playing what happens when her father has an ejaculation." And she believed that with every fiber of her being. She unfortunately eventually lost custody of her child, because no matter how much I worked with her, no matter how much a therapist worked with her, she held on to the belief that her daughter was being sexually abused, and we could not move that. Some of the things that help you identify if you're dealing with an encapsulated delusion is realizing, repeated investigations, interviews, and interventions will do nothing to remediate the parent's belief that their child is being sexually abused. At some point, you will reach the point where you have to say to the parent, "There's no more investigations we can do." Um, and it's important, as minors counsel, that you think about the child, um, not just about evidence, because these are parents who will continually put their children through forensic interviews, through invasive examinations, who will take the child to the emergency room every single time that they come back from visitation with the other parent. And this is because the parent truly believes the child is in danger and is acting accordingly to them, to their belief they are protecting their child. In reality, they are exposing their children to repeated invasive situations that are harming the child themselves. And this can continue for years. Unfortunately, it does not go away. Um, when these families are in family law, which they will be if you're dealing with the children, um, there's, at some point, bench officers have to say to a parent, you're going to lose your child, custody of your child, if you do not stop making these allegations. And what happens is that the parents many times go underground with their fears. They stop talking about believing that their child is being abused, and they continue questioning the child. And what happens with this is the parent, because they are obsessed, and that's the other feature of this, they are obsessed with the issue that their child is being abused, is continually told by the parent that they're being abused and continually questioned. And this results in that although no abuse has happened, the child begins to believe they are being abused, and this becomes a shared delusion. And it may also include other family members, because the parent is so emotionally invested that they are very, very convincing that they are just trying to protect their child and their child is in danger. I think all of you probably have heard the term, excuse me, or understood that children can have false memories given to them. And many times that's what happens with this kind of delusional thinking, is because the child is told so many times that they're being abused that the child begins to have a memory of being abused when it has never happened. And that's extremely, abusive to the child, because they now have almost the same damage done to them as if they had been abused, because they've been given memories about how bad things happened and what happened to them, that they were abused, that their father or mother did this or that. And so they start believing that, and then have a belief about something that never really happened to them. Um, as I said before, the encapsulated delusions are difficult to identify because the parent presents what they believe is evidence in an emotional, convincing manner. As when when you're working with a parent with that has an encapsulated delusion, um, it's important for you as minors counsel to be aware it's your job to protect the child, and to understand that no matter what you say or do, or the court says or does, that the parent will most likely continue with their line of reasoning. Many times, there's not usually good outcomes with these cases. Uh, Many times, the only way to protect the child is going to be for the parent to only have supervised visitation, which, as we all know, is, only gives the child a piece of the parent. And as I said earlier, that many times is really experienced by the child as a loss, because in most of their parenting role, they're very good parents. They love their children, they care for them, they many times are involved in their activities. And because they have to go under supervised visitation, the child loses that part of the parent, that very uh, wonderful part that was supportive and a part of their life, and their parent becomes something uh, of a very small piece of their life, as opposed to a large, wonderful parent that they can be, with the exception of the delusion. So, when you have a case like that, it is important that you get mental health involved. Um, Although my hope is to help you gain enough information that you can at least identify that maybe so a case you're working with has a delusion occurring. But because you are working in the legal field, you do need to get mental health involved, so that um, someone who's qualified to look at this can become involved. Unfortunately, there is not any kind of medication that helps with this. This does not respond to medication. It does not respond very well to therapy. Um, it is just a very difficult situation, as I said, that more often than not results in the parent having very restricted parenting time. Okay, moving on to how to work with a personality disordered parent or client. Um, this is important for you as minors counsel, because you need to protect yourself as well as the child. These parents are extremely time consuming if you allow them to be. They can be very difficult, they can be very accusatory. They will ask for favors, they will criticize you. They also are ones that are most likely to make a bark complaint um, about you. So let's talk a little bit about what to do. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. You need really firm boundaries, because, as I said, these are parents who are going to push at your boundaries. From the very beginning, set firm boundaries. Do not alter your hours of availability or your fees. There's a couple of really good reasons for not altering your fees and not altering your hours of availability. Many of these personality disorders will take advantage of you and then accuse you of not being responsive to them. They will want special treatment. They will want, if you tell them your office hours are from 9 until 5, they will want to know why you can't talk to them on the phone at 6 o'clock, because that's what works for them. They will want to know why they have to pay full fee, because they don't have that much money, or it's interfering with, I had one parent one time, obviously I'm not minors counsel, but I was working in the mental health area, and I had a parent say to me, I really can't afford to pay your fees right now. I'm going to Hawaii in a couple of months, and I need to save money up for that. Um, so this is how they reason, because it's all about them. So it's important you make clear what your hours of availability are. you make clear what your fees are, and you make clear that without fees, they are not going to get services from you. These are not people that you want to run a tab on, because that tab very well may never be paid up, and they will use your time without regard to any thought to you. They constantly have disasters, or what they perceive as disasters. They can call you 5 times a week and they don't see it as excessive. So you do not need to respond to every perceived disaster. Keep it within the business day. You sometimes may need to say to them, I understand that this is very upsetting to you, but we will have to set an appointment for you to come in tomorrow to talk about it, or Friday, whatever works into your schedule. Be clear and concise with your expectations, because their expectation is you will be everything and anything they want you to be. So you've got to draw the picture of what your role is and what their role is. They need, particularly with minors counsel, they need to understand that you represent their children or their child, not them, because they will constantly mix that role up and want to believe or use you as their counsel, as opposed to understanding that you really have no relationship with them other than they are the parent of your client. And you also need to make clear to them that their role is to give you the information that you are requesting and to follow your directions, because minors counsel role is not clearly defined sometimes for the parents. And I think particularly with personality disordered parents, you really need to upfront let them know what your expectations are of them. And you'll need to let them know when they're not meeting your expectations. Will they like this? No. But you will get a better outcome if you're clear with them and hold them to your expectations. Do not give them special attention. This is really important. Almost all of the personality disorders crave special attention. They need to be special, and they believe they're special. You will hear from them that their case is not like anyone else's case. You will hear from them that they have the worst ex-spouse in the entire world. You will hear from them how special they are as a parent, how many things they've done to be the best parent in the world. And sometimes you will have trouble keeping a straight face when they are explaining these things to you. But it is important that from the beginning you realize not to give them special attention. Be a good listener. Listen to them without interruptions and use eye contact and give them attention. These are people who need to be listened to, and you will save yourself trouble if you listen to them. Respond to their feelings by statements such as, that sounds like you were really sad, that sounds like it was really difficult. Make sure that you validate that you understand what their feelings are, but you don't need to validate that their feelings dictate actions that you need to take, because they run on their feelings. If they are angry, then for them it's okay to go off on someone, and they're expecting you to do the same thing if they're telling you how awful something is. So it's important to listen. Try not to interrupt them. They can be very long-winded, but at the end of listening, try to validate just their feelings and don't put an action onto the feeling. This goes along with avoid agreeing with the content. Instead, take it in as information. Okay, I hear what you're saying and how you feel about it. They may even take that as you are agreeing with them. Um, and you will need to be clear with them is I understood what you say and I understand how you feel about it and I will need to look into it. It's important because they will continually pull for you to agree with their feeling because their content is their feeling. Okay, they do not differentiate from facts and feelings. They feel this way, therefore this is how it is. Be consistent in your interactions with them. Guard your time and energy and do your best to avoid getting angry with them or at least expressing your anger at them. Um, Many of the personality disorders, particularly antisocial and narcissists, they love a good fight. Nothing makes them happier than to get you involved with them and see you get angry. For them, that's a win. So you want to maintain calmness. You also want to maintain emotional distance. And you need to do that by guarding your time and energy because they will zap all of your time and energy if you allow them to. That's why they're called emotional vampires because they will suck you dry. And, it's sort of a way for you to know if you're dealing with an emotional vampire called a personality disorder because you will find yourself feeling sucked dry after your interactions with them. Don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed by their demands and then abandon them. They are revengeful, and this is where many state bar complaints come from. Um, and I think this happens for minors counsel because basically to start with, if you're a minors counsel, you're probably a fairly empathetic person who wants to help kids. That's why you're doing minors counsel work, right? So you probably tend to be empathetic and to try to be a helper. Uh, but you've got to be careful not to be overwhelmed by them because you'll build up resentment and then you will be overwhelmed and then when if they're used to you meeting their every demand and then you pull back, they feel abandoned. And this is like the worst feeling in the world for a personality disorder is to feel abandoned. And when they feel abandoned, they're going to go after you. They, as I said, they're revengeful. And the best way to get back at a lawyer is to make a state bar complaint. And if you talk to your state bar, they will tell you the majority of complaints do come from clients who have some mental issues, uh, and are not really based in the give and take of a relationship. So it's important that from the beginning you do not meet their demands. When you're working with them, acknowledge their strengths. And this is a little bit of giving them praise. uh, you know, when you can find their strengths, tell them, let them know, gosh, you are so good at helping your kid with their homework. I am really impressed. You are saying to them, you do such a great job of keeping them in sports or getting them to their dance class. You're not probably going to be able to praise them or acknowledge too many strengths in the emotional area because they don't usually have many. But if you see some, acknowledge them. It makes them easier to work with. Um, because they're all about themselves, if you make them feel good about themselves, then they're just easier to work with them. Um, when you're working with them, remember they are more concerned with the way they are treated than the actual legal outcome, which is really interesting because when you listen to them, it sounds like they're just what they want is, their way in court. They want their day in court, um, which they do. But really, why they want their day in court is they want um, to know they've been heard, and if if they feel heard, then they feel well treated. You have a much more intimate relationship with them because it's ongoing. You're working with their children, so if you can uh, remember that they are concerned you that you treat them with respect, that you listen to them, um, that you find good things about them, working with them will be easier. They are overly sensitive to criticism and perceived rejection. Um, and there's not a lot you can do about this. It's kind of like a minefield when you're working with them, especially if you have to deliver bad news to them or, do something that they interpret as being critical. Like if you make a recommendation that their timeshare is less, or that they alter uh, some part of their parenting, they are going to take it as much deeper than someone without a personality disorder. Um, it's important you can validate their feelings, but you have to base everything on facts. Um, if you have a personality disordered parent, anticipate crises because you will have them. You will have many of them. Um, that is just part of working with them. Um, if you're working with a borderline, and be aware the majority of borderlines in the United States are females. We do have borderline males, but they're less common. Um, that's just a gender, how it falls on gender lines. So many times you will hear borderlines referred to as she, but male borderlines definitely do exist. Borderlines are especially sensitive to abandonment. Um, so that looks something like if a borderline mother has been the primary parent and the court changes primary custody over to father, mother experiences that as abandonment by the children. When a borderline feels abandoned, oftentimes they go into depression. And that's something to watch for because, once again, your job is to make sure that you are making the best recommendations and looking out for the child. Narcissists are extremely sensitive to being belittled. And this goes as far as to just disagreeing with them. But and sometimes you've got to make a call, and narcissists are going to be called out on uh, negative parenting that they may do, or negative co-parenting. And when that happens, be aware that they're going to feel belittled. So, as much as you can when you're working with a narcissist, frame your criticisms as gently as possible. You will get better results. Antisocial disorders do not like being dominated, and so they're very sensitive to being told what to do. Um, and it's very difficult. They want to be in charge. And sometimes uh, for male antisocial disorders, they are extremely offended by being told what to do by a female. Many times, those are the males that have been involved in um, all kinds of sexual, whether it's sexual abuse or domestic violence or coercive control. They are used to being in charge and having things their way. And they're, as I said, they do not like to be told what to do. So just in general, they are not going to be happy when you become appointed as minors counsel and they realize that you do have the legal standing to make decisions about them and their children that they do not like. Histrionics are very sensitive to being ignored. Um, Once again, these are the clients that every little crisis, they want you to acknowledge it and respond to it. And it takes quite a bit of practice to learn to respond to them without giving in to uh, not holding your boundaries without making them feel ignored. So sometimes a quick email, I'll talk to you tomorrow, or a quick text message. Yeah, I will deal with that later today. If it's something you're going to do, is helpful. But once again, these are not things you want to respond to after hours, on your day off, on the weekends. They need to stay within the boundaries. And that's why it's important to set those boundaries up and explain to them that when uh, something comes in that's out of hours, that you're not ignoring them, but that you don't get the information until the next day. One of the lines that I have used for years when I'm working with personality disorders that um, have a belief, because I'm a therapist, that I should be available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I explain to them that they are so important to me that I want to make sure when I am listening to them that they have my full attention. And the only way that I can guarantee that they have my full attention is that I have an appointment time set aside for them and no one else is on my mind. No one else is going to be bothering me, and I can focus totally on them. And they love that. Uh, and of course, they will remind me when they have a after hours emergency that this is a true emergency. And the next day when I respond to them, I once again remind them how important they are and that I need to set time aside just for them to be listened to, and that I can't do that in when it's after hours. Um, when you're working um, with borderlines, all personality disorders, but especially borderlines, be careful not to agree with your cognitive distortions. You can support them uh, by not uh, overly responding to their emotions. You want to stay based in facts. So sometimes you're going to have to say to something like this to them is, I understand when your ex uh, is rude to you, that it upsets you and you feel that he's not respectful, but I want to remind you that is some that's something that your ex does, that you don't have to respond to that. So by doing that, you help them learn that they don't have to respond to their emotions, and neither do you. um, their cognitive distortions, go from, if you take, if my child wants to go with their mother, that means they don't want to be with me, which is a cognitive distortion. They don't consider the fact that their child can want to spend time with both parents. For them, it's black and white. If you want to spend time with me, you don't want to spend time with mom, vice versa. So you have to be careful not to agree with your cognitive distortions, and that takes a little bit of practice. You may have to remind them gently that although you understand how difficult a situation feels, the judge, the evaluator, whoever, can only deal with the facts that you and they are able to provide the court. You have to explain to them you cannot go into court and represent them on their feelings. This is huge for them. Um, if they trust you, they will, you know, believe that you are trying to help their child. Uh, but for them, their feelings are reality, and it's it's just beyond them at times when they're in court or they're dealing with minors counsel, and you're asking them, what facts do you have for that? Why do you believe that your child should never see their father or mother again? What are your reasons? And they'll tell you, because I feel this or I feel that. They do not discriminate between facts and feelings. Um, Many times, as minors counsel, um, you may be involved in, trying to mediate something, or making recommendations uh, between the parents or with the parent. Um, Avoid reaching conclusions too early in a case. Um, it's important that you remain bonded to both sides to assure that they both give you all the information they have. Because these people are feeling based, you will get more out of them. As I said, if they feel listened to by you and bonded to you, they will give you more information than if they perceive you as their enemy. Um, they will be more likely to accept the recommendations if they feel they were reached by a truly neutral party who listened to them. Again, and I know this sounds repetitive, they need to be listened to. Um, they are ultra sensitive, so staying neutral is really important. Watching your words, making sure you never make any kind of slur about the other parent or about them. Try not to roll your eyes. It's really important. Don't do that. Um, True neutrality um, is very important. It is of utmost importance if you're trying to negotiate something with them. Um, you also have to teach them the legal realities and get rid of the fantasies of their day in court. Uh, you will find most of these parents, and even though uh, as minors counsel, you're representing their child, not them, but because you're in family law, you probably are also one of the, have some clients that, here they are the personality disordered, and you helping them understand the legal realities is important, because they are all about their feelings, and usually they're all about revenge. They want revenge, and helping them understand what court is about and what they can expect. Um, is really important because their fantasies um, go in going into court uh, are not realistic. And as we all know, when we're disappointed with expectations, um, we get, they're going to get angry, they're going to get mean. So it's important to stick with the realities. My work with parents has taught me that most parents do not understand that family law court is not about punishment. It's about helping families work together. And, I'd say at least 80% of families going into court are looking for the other parent to be punished. And I think helping them understand that that is not what family court is about, that family court is looking for resolution, is important and helps them have a much better idea of what they're going to get out of court. Okay. Sometimes, as minors counsel, you're going to be in the role of kind of being the middleman between the two parents, or helping one parent or the other uh, to respond to the other parent to minimize the negative energy. Um, so you can help, the parent understand that if they, if their co-parent is personality disordered, and you're not going to say that to them, but bottom line, they're saying they are so hard to deal with, you're going to want to help them understand that no matter how the other parent comes at them, if they avoid responding with personal attacks or criticisms back, they will do better. If they start criticizing the other parent who's personality disordered, they are just going to get into a circle of blame. Sometimes offering apologies for miscommunication or misunderstandings will reduce or eliminate the conflict. It's amazing what an apology can do. If someone can say, I am so sorry, I misunderstood what you said to me, or I am so sorry, I did not communicate that to you correctly, it can eliminate a huge conflict. So helping the target parent, the parent who is trying to deal with the personality disordered parent, helping them understand apologies, little ones, can go a long way, is very helpful. If the target and other parent are together with you, do not encourage them in sharing feelings or venting, as is done in mediation. And most of you probably are trained in mediation. They will become focused on feelings and not on reality. So if you have these two parents together, or whatever, one personality disordered and one not, or two personality disordered, you are going to focus only on facts. You don't ask them how are they feeling or what's going on. Keep it only on facts. Focus them on tasks to move them through the dispute. You're going to have better results for your client, the child, or your client, the adult, if you happen to be in the role of attorney for adults, is to give them tasks that move them through. It may, rather than let them just kind of get stuck in their feelings, ask them, okay, or tell them, this is what you're going to do. You are going to go take a parenting class. You are going to promise, you're going to get the child back on time each exchange. Whatever it is that's problematic, focus it on something they can do to remediate it, and have that a task. Sometimes avoiding contact with the high conflict person is the best way to minimize damage. That's why we use Talking Parents, Our Family Wizard. Um, and my personal belief, having worked with these kind of parents for a long time, is the least contact they have, the better. Um, and that is why, even though it's hard to think about raising a child through text messages over or emails, it actually takes the child out of the middle and helps both parents stay focused on their own lives, because contact, many times it's just unavoidable uh, to have conflict with a personality disorder. That's just where they go. It does escalate borderlines because they have trouble letting go. They love the fight. That is what makes them feel good. Um, I hope this has been helpful. I have some resources here um, that have been found. I think my parents have found these really helpful. All of Bill Eddy's books um, talk about how to deal with difficult people. Emotional Vampires, Dealing with People Who Drain You by Albert Berenstein is a wonderful book. Um, I think uh, um, the more you can educate a non-personality disordered parent who has to deal with a personality disordered parent, the more you can educate them in how to deal with it to minimize the conflict, the better off the family will be. Um, I also think understanding that, kind of in summary, that if you're working with a family, and you are going to be working with a family that has personality disorders, you need to look at how that is going to have effect ongoing on the children, and make recommendations with the child's best interest, uh, which may not be in line with what the parents want. But realize personality disordered parents are going to make very few changes. That time does not make things get better. If they're truly disordered, their patterns will remain. So, in that sense, having using parallel parenting as opposed to co-parenting, using Talking Parents, Family Wizard as opposed to verbal interaction, um, sometimes making sure that there's a special master or a minors counsel that continues on the case is really important. I hope this has been helpful, and my best wishes to all of you, because I know you will be working with some of these difficult parents, and I know that your intervention is something that will make the lives of the children much better and help them enjoy the best of both parents. Thank you.